Right now, as you watch this, Saturn is eating itself. Every single second, 10,000 kilograms of ice from its own rings rain down into its atmosphere. That's enough to fill an Olympic swimming pool every 30 minutes. The most iconic feature in the entire solar system is disappearing. But that's not the terrifying part. Saturn has a permanent hexagonal storm at its north pole, not circular, not oval, a perfect hexagon. Each side is longer than the diameter of Earth. Wind speeds inside reach 540 kilometers per hour, and it has been raging for at least 40 years, likely much longer. No one knows why it's a hexagon. No one knows when it started. No one knows when it will stop. Deep inside the planet, it rains liquid helium, not water, not methane. Helium, the second lightest element in the universe, compressed into a liquid metal that falls like rain through an ocean of metallic hydrogen in total darkness. And orbiting this nightmare are 274 moons, including one with lakes and rivers made of liquid methane, and another that's shooting geysers of ocean water into space, water that may contain the building blocks of life. Saturn is not what you think it is. It's not the pretty planet with the rings. It is the most terrifying world in the solar system. And today, we're going to show you why. If you're the kind of person who looks up at the night sky and wants to know the raw, unfiltered truth about what's really out there, you're in the right place. This is Final Frontier Space. Hit that subscribe button right now. Tap the bell so you never miss a deep dive. And drop a like on this video. It genuinely helps us bring you more journeys like this one. All right, let's enter the ringed giant. Chapter 1. The Beautiful Lie. When you think of Saturn, you probably picture something peaceful. A golden planet wrapped in elegant rings, floating serenely through the darkness of space. It's the planet that looks like jewelry. The one every child draws in school. The one that seems fits 764 Earths. You could fit 764 Earths in the volume of Saturn, fit 764 Earths inside it. 95 times more massive than our world. And yet, if you could somehow build a bathtub large enough to hold it, Saturn would float. Its average density is 0.69 grams per cubic centimeter, less than water, the only planet in the solar system that's less dense than the liquid in your glass. A world 764 times the volume of Earth, and it would bob on a lake like a beach ball. That should disturb you, because it means Saturn is not solid, it's not rocky. Once every 10 hours and 33 once every 10 hours and 33 minutes, that it has visibly flattened at the poles. Saturn is 9.5 times wider than Earth at the equator, but only about 8 6/10 times wider pole to pole. The planet is literally bulging outward from its own rotation. It's the most oblate planet in the solar system. And that spin does something else. It drives the most extreme atmospheric dynamics of any world we've ever studied. Saturn's equatorial winds blow at over 1,800 kilometers per hour. That's 5 times faster than the strongest hurricane ever recorded on Earth. 5 times faster than a Category 5 hurricane at its absolute peak. And those winds never stop. They are permanent features of the atmosphere, driven by the planet's internal heat and rapid rotation. Saturn radiates more than twice the energy it receives from the Sun. It glows from within, not from nuclear fusion, like a star, but from a process far stranger. Deep inside the planet, helium is literally raining out of the hydrogen atmosphere, and as it falls, it converts gravitational energy into heat. Saturn is powered by rain, but not any rain you would recognize. We'll come back to that. Because what's falling inside Saturn is one of the most alien phenomena in the solar system. Chapter 2. The Hexagon. Time equals 1 second/greater. Then at Saturn's North Pole, there is a storm that should not exist. In 1981, when Voyager 2 flew past Saturn, it captured something that baffled every atmospheric scientist on the planet. A massive weather pattern at the North Pole, shaped like a near-perfect hexagon. Not a circle, not a spiral, not an oval, 6 straight sides, 6 sharp corners. A geometric shape embedded in the chaos of a gas giant's atmosphere. Scientists assumed it was a temporary anomaly, an atmospheric glitch that would dissipate within a few years. It didn't. When Cassini arrived at Saturn 23 years later, in 2004, the hexagon was still there. Exactly the same shape, exactly the same size, exactly the same position. It hadn't moved, it hadn't changed, it hadn't faded. Let me give you the scale of this thing. Each side of Saturn's hexagon is approximately 14,000 kilometers long. That means each side is longer than the diameter of Earth. The entire hexagon is about 30,000 kilometers across. You could drop 2.5 Earths side by side inside it. Inside the hexagon, winds reach 540 kilometers per hour. And at the very center, there is a separate, smaller cyclone, an eye of the storm, with a wall of clouds rising 75 kilometers above the surrounding atmosphere. That wall is 4 times taller than the tallest thunderstorm on Earth. Now here's what makes this truly unsettling. No other planet in the solar system has anything like this. Jupiter has the Great Red Spot, an enormous oval storm. Neptune has dark spots. Earth has hurricanes and cyclones. Every single one of them is round or oval, because that's what physics dictates. Rotating fluid dynamics on a spinning sphere produce circular patterns. Always. Except on Saturn. A 2020 study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences used 3-dimensional computer simulations to show that the hexagon may be generated by deep rotating convection, thousands of kilometers below the visible cloud tops. Giant vortices in Saturn's interior pinch the eastward jet stream into a polygonal shape. The hexagon is not a surface phenomenon. It's a level equals strong window into the deep interior of the planet. This storm has been raging for at least 4 decades, possibly centuries, possibly since before humans existed. And it rotates at exactly the same rate as Saturn's internal rotation, 10 hours and 33 minutes, as if the planet itself, from its deepest layers to its cloud tops, is locked into this one perfect, impossible shape. Chapter 3. The Great White Spot. Every 20 to 30 years, Saturn produces something that makes the hexagon look calm by comparison. They're called Great White Spots, megastorms that erupt from deep within Saturn's atmosphere and grow until they encircle the entire planet. We've observed 6 of them since 1876. The most recent one erupted on December 5, 2010, and Cassini was there to witness every moment. Within 3 weeks, the storm had grown to 10,000 kilometers north to south and 17,000 kilometers east to west. By late January 2011, it had wrapped completely around the planet, a band of violent convective chaos stretching 100,000 kilometers, an area of 4 billion square kilometers, 500 times larger than the biggest storm Cassini had ever observed. At its peak, the storm was producing more than 10 lightning strikes per second. 10 flashes every second, for months. That's 10 times more frequent than any other storm Cassini had monitored in its 13 years at Saturn. The power released by this storm was so immense that it measurably heated Saturn's stratosphere. a layer of atmosphere far above the storm itself. Two massive warm air masses formed above the storm, altering the chemical composition of the upper atmosphere. One storm, born in the deep interior, changed the chemistry of a planet 9 times wider than Earth. Nobody knows exactly what triggers them. The leading theory is that water vapor, which is heavier than hydrogen and helium, accumulates deep in Saturn's atmosphere over decades, held down by the weight of the gas above it. Pressure builds, heat builds, and eventually, like a lid being blown off a pot, the water vapor erupts upward in a massive convective explosion. Time equals 500 milliseconds, / greater than Saturn stores its fury for decades, and then releases it all at once. Chapter 4: Helium Rain and the Abyss Within. If you could somehow descend into Saturn's atmosphere, you would experience something no science fiction movie has ever accurately depicted. At the cloud tops, the temperature is minus 178 degrees Celsius. The pressure is about 1 atmosphere, roughly sea level on Earth. You would see bands of pale gold and cream-colored ammonia clouds stretching to the horizon, driven by those 1,800 km/h winds. As you descend, the sunlight fades. The temperature rises, the pressure climbs. Within a few hundred kilometers, you're in total darkness, surrounded by hydrogen gas that is getting denser with every meter you fall. At about 1,000 kilometers depth, the pressure reaches 10 atmospheres. The hydrogen is no longer a gas. It hasn't become a liquid in the way you'd understand it, with a visible surface. It's a supercritical fluid, a state of matter that behaves like a gas and a liquid simultaneously. There is no surface. There is no boundary. Just an endless gradient of increasing density. And then, deep below, something happens that exists almost nowhere else in the universe. At around 30,000 kilometers deep, the pressure exceeds 2 million atmospheres. The temperature reaches 10,000 degrees, and at these conditions, hydrogen and helium can no longer coexist in the same mixture. They separate like oil and water. The helium, being denser, condenses into droplets. And those droplets fall. It rains helium inside Saturn. This was first predicted theoretically in the 1970s. But in 2010, physicists at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory used the Omega Laser Facility to recreate the conditions inside Saturn. They compressed hydrogen-helium mixtures between diamond anvils and observed exactly what the theories predicted. At high pressures, the helium separated out of the hydrogen and formed distinct droplets. Helium rain is real, and it solves a mystery that had puzzled scientists for decades. Saturn emits 2.5 times more energy than it receives from the Sun. It is more than 50% brighter than it should be for a planet that has been cooling for 4.5 billion years. Where is this excess energy coming from? The answer is the rain. As helium droplets fall through the metallic hydrogen ocean, they convert gravitational potential energy into heat. Saturn is heated from within by a rain of liquid metal, falling through a deeper ocean of liquid metal in complete darkness, at temperatures that would vaporize any material on Earth. At the very center, Saturn has a core, but like Jupiter's, it's not what you'd expect. Cassini's gravity measurements revealed that Saturn's core is not a neat ball of rock. It's a diffuse, dilute core, a region of heavy elements, rock, ice, and metal, dissolved into the surrounding fluid and spread across 60% of the planet's radius. 17 Earth masses of material with no clear boundary. The core temperature is estimated at 11,700 degrees Celsius, twice as hot as the surface of the Sun. and there is no solid ground there, Moratro. Just a gradient of increasingly dense, increasingly hot fluid blending seamlessly into the ocean of metallic hydrogen above. Saturn has no surface at the top and no surface at the bottom. It is an abyss that goes all the way down and all the way back up. Chapter 5. The rings are dying. Now let's talk about the one thing everyone associates with Saturn: the rings. Saturn's ring system is staggeringly large. From edge to edge, the main rings span 282,000 kilometers. You could line up almost 3/4 of the distance from the Earth to the Moon across them. But here's the counterintuitive truth. The rings are almost unimaginably thin. On average, they're only about 10 meters thick. 10 meters. If you scaled Saturn's rings down to the size of a football field, they would be 10,000 times thinner than a razor blade. They're made almost entirely of water ice. Chunks ranging from tiny grains to pieces the size of houses, all orbiting Saturn in a flat disk of extraordinary precision. 99% pure water ice. For most of human history, we assume the rings formed with the planet 4.5 billion years ago. That they were primordial, ancient, permanent. We were wrong. Time equals 600 milliseconds, / greater than Cassini's data, revealed something that shocked the scientific community. Saturn's rings are young, geologically young. They formed only 10 to 100 million years ago. That means the rings didn't exist when dinosaurs roamed the Earth. They appeared sometime between the late Cretaceous and the early Miocene. Saturn spent the vast majority of its 4.5 billion year life without rings, and they won't be here much longer. NASA research published in the journal Icarus confirmed that Saturn is losing its rings at what scientists called the worst-case scenario rate. The process is called ring rain. Saturn's magnetic field is constantly pulling charged ice particles out of the rings and dragging them down into the planet's atmosphere. Approximately 4,400 pounds of water fall into Saturn from its rings every second, enough to fill an Olympic swimming pool every half hour. And that's not all. Cassini discovered that even more material is falling directly into Saturn's equator from the inner edge of the rings, adding to the total loss rate. At this rate, Saturn's rings will be completely gone in less than 100 million years. That sounds like a long time, but Saturn is 4.5 billion years old. 100 million years is about 2% of its total lifespan. We are witnessing Saturn's rings during their final chapter. We exist in the tiny window of cosmic time where Saturn has rings at all. Every generation that comes after us will see them thinner, fainter, and more sparse, and eventually they will be gone entirely. The most beautiful feature in the solar system is temporary, and it's disappearing right now as you watch this video. Chapter 6. The Moons of Nightmares and Miracles. As if Saturn itself weren't terrifying enough, it holds court over the most extreme collection of moons in the solar system. 274 confirmed moons, more than any other planet, and 2 of them might be the most important worlds in the search for extraterrestrial life. First, Titan. Titan is larger than the planet Mercury. It's the only moon in the solar system, with a thick, substantial atmosphere, 1.5 times the surface pressure of Earth's atmosphere. If you stood on Titan's surface, the air would press down on you harder than it does on Earth. But Titan's atmosphere is not breathable. It's 98% nitrogen, with clouds and rain made of liquid methane and ethane. Titan has rivers, lakes, seas, an entire hydrological cycle made of liquid natural gas. Imagine standing on Titan's surface. The sky is a hazy orange. The ground is water ice, frozen as hard as granite. Nearby, a lake of liquid methane stretches to the horizon, smooth and black and utterly still. It rains methane. Methane rivers carve channels into the frozen landscape. It's Earth's hydrological cycle recreated with an alien chemistry at -179 degrees Celsius. The most alien landscape in the solar system, and it works by the same rules as our planet. And then there's Enceladus. Enceladus is tiny, only 500 kilometers across. You could drive across it in a few hours. It's covered in ice, brilliantly white, the most reflective object in the solar system. In 2005, Cassini flew past Enceladus and detected something astonishing. Massive geysers of water vapor and ice particles erupting from 4 parallel fractures near the moon's south pole. Scientists call them the tiger stripes, and they're blasting material the hundreds of kilometers into space. Cassini flew directly through those plumes. It tasted the water, and what it found changed everything. The plumes contain salt water, silica nanoparticles, which on Earth only form in hydrothermal vents at the bottom of the ocean. Molecular hydrogen, a chemical signature of active water rock reactions. And in November 2025, scientists reanalyzing Cassini data announced the discovery of fresh organic compounds in those ice grains. Molecules containing nitrogen and oxygen, collected just minutes after erupting from the subsurface ocean. Precursors for amino acids, the building blocks of proteins. Beneath Enceladus's ice shell, there is a global ocean of liquid water. At the bottom of that ocean, there are hydrothermal vents, heated by the moon's core. A 2025 study in Nature Astronomy showed that these vents drive currents that push organic material toward the South Pole and up through the tiger stripes in a matter of hours to weeks. Hot water, organic molecules, chemical energy, a liquid ocean shielded from radiation by a shell of ice. These are exactly the conditions that exist at the hydrothermal vents on Earth's ocean floor, where life thrives in total darkness, completely independent of sunlight. Is there life on Enceladus? We don't know, but every piece of evidence Cassini found is consistent with a world that could support it. And this moon, this tiny icy moon smaller than the state of Arizona, is orbiting Saturn right now, spraying the potential ingredients for life into the void of space. Chapter 7. The Death of Cassini. Everything we know about Saturn's terrors, the hexagon, the helium rain, the dying rings, the organic molecules erupting from Enceladus, we know because of one spacecraft. Cassini launched from Earth on October 15, 1997. It arrived at Saturn on June 30, 2004. It spent the next 13 years orbiting the planet, studying its atmosphere, its rings, and its moons in more detail than any mission in history. But by 2017, Cassini was running out of fuel, and NASA faced a decision. They couldn't let Cassini drift uncontrolled. If it crashed into Titan or Enceladus, it could contaminate those moons with Earth microbes, potentially compromising the very environments it had spent years studying, the very environments that might harbor alien life. So NASA chose to kill Cassini, not by abandoning it, by sending it on one final mission, the grand finale. Starting in April 2017, Cassini performed 22 orbits that threaded the narrow gap between Saturn and its innermost ring, a gap no spacecraft had ever entered, a region where particle fluxes from the radiation belts could have destroyed its instruments. On each pass, Cassini gathered data on Saturn's gravitational field, its magnetic field, the composition of the ring particles, and the planet's deep interior structure. Every orbit was a gamble. Every pass through the gap could have been the last. Time equals 500 milliseconds, / greater than. And then, on September the 15th, 2017, Cassini made its final dive. It entered Saturn's upper atmosphere at 70,000 miles per hour, 1,200 miles above the cloud tops. For 63 seconds, its thrusters fired continuously, trying to keep the antenna pointed at Earth as the atmosphere tore at the spacecraft. Cassini fought to send home every last byte of data, and then the thrusters lost. Saturn's atmosphere overwhelmed them. The spacecraft tumbled, the signal stopped. At NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, the mission control team watched as the carrier signal flatlined. Project manager Earl Mays stood up and said, "I'm going to call this the end of mission." Within seconds, Cassini was torn apart. Within minutes, it was vaporized. Its atoms, titanium, silicon, gold, became part of Saturn's atmosphere. A spacecraft that had traveled 3.5 billion kilometers over 20 years was erased in minutes. The signal Cassini sent during its final dive took 83 minutes to cross the solar system and reach Earth. By the time we heard its last words, Cassini had already been dead for over an hour. Chapter 8. Why Saturn Terrifies. Saturn terrifies because it doesn't fit the categories we've built for the universe. It's a planet that floats on water, but is 95 times more massive than Earth. It has a storm shaped like a hexagon that has lasted longer than any human civilization. It produces megastorms that erupt once every 30 years and wrap around the entire planet with 10 lightning bolts per second. It rains liquid metal in its interior. Its rings are younger than the dinosaurs and will be gone before the sun dies. It has a moon with methane rain and another that's blasting the ingredients for life into space. And the only machine we ever sent to study it in detail was deliberately plunged into its atmosphere, where it was destroyed in seconds, because we were afraid it might accidentally contaminate the alien oceans around it. That is not a peaceful, pretty planet. That is a world that breaks our understanding of what a planet can be. And it's out there right now. 1.2 billion kilometers from where you're sitting, spinning once every 10 hours and 33 minutes, devouring its own rings, glowing from within. Silent, colossal, terrifying. Maybe the most important thing Saturn teaches us is this: beauty and terror are not opposites. They are the same thing, seen from different distances. Saturn is the most beautiful planet in the solar system, and the most terrifying. And those two facts don't contradict each other. They require each other. If this video changed the way you see Saturn, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Share this with someone who thinks space is boring. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Final Frontier Space and ring that notification bell. We go deep into the worlds that nobody shows you, and we do it every single week. I'll see you in the next one.